سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مسلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا شمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل بفلك يسبحون وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم بالفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منها ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آيات من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة فخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد صرفنا في هذا القرآن للناس من كل مثل وكان الإنسان أكثر شيء جدلا. وقال مصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم خيركم من تعلم القرآن وعلمه. نسأل الله يجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. يا أحباب الإكرام، فما المراد بهذه الآية؟ حيث قال الله عز وجل أفلا يتدبرون القرآن أم على قلوب أقفالها. My respected elders, brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran chapter 8 in Surah Kaf that وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. The translation more or less that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us everything that we need to thrive. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent 23 years of his life actualizing and explaining. But man is ever contentious. We all know that Islam is a complete way of life, a complete system. And if that is the case, then it must have solutions to our problems. One of the problems we are having today, right here in the UK, is 1 out of 4. 1 out of 4 brains is suffering from hypertension. Why? And what is Islam's solution to that? Because Islam has its medical branch called Tibb al-Nabawi, prophetic medicine, which unfortunately we've almost forgotten about. And if you look at the rate, there is nothing to indicate that Muslims are exempt. We are as sick as anybody else. And we as the Ummah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has squarely placed the affairs of the world on us, saying to us, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best in mankind, selected because you enjoy that which is good and forbid that which is bad, and you firmly believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Part of that which we should be encouraging people is to actually live a healthy life, just like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so what is our solution? And epigenetically, how does that relate to what we see around us? And as we all know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the heart, for which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was reported to have said, if his disease, إذا صلت صلى الجسد كله وإذا فسدت فسد الجسد كله على وهي القلب. The one organ in the human body that as long as it's healthy, the entire body is healthy. If it's diseased, the entire body is diseased. And that is the heart. And that is true spiritually, and it's true physiologically, it's true pathophysiologically, it's true biochemically. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given each and every one of us 4 chambers that we call the heart. We have the atrium, the 2 upper part that receive blood, and the lower chamber that actually takes the blood and get it purified. And this has to keep on before you were born up to the day you die. The day you die, that's when it stops. As a matter of fact, it's when it stops that is when you are clinically dead. And so if anything goes wrong with this, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, then you have problem. But why on earth would all the blessings that we have, 1 out of 4 is hypertensive? Let us look at what is happening around us. We have been given the responsibility to raise our children. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question each and every one of us. The responsibility is on us. But the moment we shift a little bit from what the Prophet ﷺ has actually laid down, things will start to fall apart. MashaAllah, we go to work, and it's extremely important. Even on Fridays, as we all know, there is no excuse. There is no excuse in that. فَإِذَا قُضِيَتُ الصَّلَاةُ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. And so going to work is, MashaAllah, is part of our deen. But how do we walk a path to balance the responsibility of the family and work? You have to walk a fine line to ensure that you give quality time for your family and at the same time work. If not, one has to take preference over the other. And in most cases, we give preference to work than our children. And so we go to work, by the time we come home, we're tired. Our children spend more time outside than the time they spend with us. And by the time they come home, you are back home. The little time that you have, that's when you're going to be on TV or, mashallah, or, on phone, and your children will be doing their own thing. They need us in their lives. But in most cases, they don't have it. And so there is this gap between us and our children. So we don't know our children, literally speaking. We are stuck in the same apartment, but we don't know our children. And they don't know us. And because of this psychological upsurge, they look for alternatives. And because of peer pressure, when they go to school, they also want to fit in and prove to their colleagues that, hey, I'm just like you. And even though they being Muslim children are supposed to be exceptional, but we've not actually trained them to know who they are as Muslims. They're not just like any ordinary kids. They are Muslims. And because of this vacuum and cognitive disconnect, our children go to school, and because of peer pressure, they tend to have their own role models. Maybe from the games they play, or maybe a movie they watch, or a story that they heard. And in most cases, all these games that we buy for them in order to cover our own guilt. Because we don't have quality time for them, so we tend to give them gifts. Buy them some expensive, sophisticated gadgets, and they're playing with them. And that defines their life. And so in order to actually fill this vacuum and the grudge that they have, because they can't complain to you. So with time they develop antisocial behaviors. And in order to prove that they are as tough as anybody else, they look at someone who has actually taken a knife and voluntarily attack someone. They don't want to be left behind. Others will think that they are soft. They are not tough. They don't fit in because of peer pressure. Because you are defined by the people you surround yourself with. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls our attention by the A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. All you who believe, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be among those who are pious. Surround yourself with those who are pious. As someone beautiful says, he says, if you befriend a wolf, you learn how to howl. If you befriend an eagle, you learn how to fly. And so the people you surround yourself with define you. And because the classroom, everybody is trying to be violent and disrespectful to the teacher to show how tough we can be, our children tend to copy. And so instead of our children being role models and tell them that that is just not right, because they know from what we taught them as Muslims that they should be respectful to the elders, whether they are Muslims or not. The fact that someone is an elder person deserves your respect. But we're not there to teach them. And so if you look at, I don't know if anyone, if you have time, to read the briefing of the House of Commons, they've actually given the reason why we're having an increase in night violence. Among, mashallah, what contributed to that, you have, the cut of police budget. There is no more, stopping and searching and all stuff. But that can only minimize it. But what is the cost? And what is our responsibilities? If you live in London and night violence is going on as a Muslim, and you don't know the statistics, and you're not even thinking that you are part of the problem, then it's time to rethink. Because the moment you start blaming the children, and the moment you start blaming the politicians, and the moment you start to blame the mayor, the moment you start to blame everybody else, it makes you powerless. You've taken yourself out of the picture, so which means you can't contribute. But if you see yourself as a Muslim, wherever you go, you are supposed to change that place for the better. So it puts you right in the middle of the night violence. You tend to find reason what is actually happening. Why will these children, with all the blessings that they have, will tend to have such low aid as a result of violence? When you put yourself in the middle, that is when you start to question, what have I done to contribute to this problem? And what am I supposed to do as a Muslim to help solve the problem? Londoners have actually placed London in your hands. So you are Mr. Khan now. You are the mayor now. You define the next generation. And every non-Muslim you see on the street has right over you. And the right is to help spread al-Islam and help spread peace. But because, mashallah, we're so busy, and with all due respect, I have what I call the back home syndrome. Some of us we are caught up in between. We work very hard in order, to build mansions, quote unquote, where we call back home. And we don't invest in the children. And we don't even have time for the children. We are not living to live in those homes. And we are not doing anything here. And because of this vacuum, as I previously stated, the children don't have sense of direction. They don't have aim. They don't have a goal. Who is supposed to teach them what they should be aiming? You and I. But we are not there, literally speaking. Because we're very busy. If a child
think he will be involved in night violence? No. Because he will see that as being too low. He has an aim. But we're not there. And that comes back to haunt us. How? Because of insecurity. And because we are always in rush. We have to go to work and come home and sleep. The next day I have to go. We are actually having this disconnect between us and our wives, and between us and our children. And so there's a substance in the brain called endorphin. We tend to lack that. And because we lack that, guess what? It adversely affects the way our heart beats. And if you look from the nutritional point of view, the Prophet ﷺ used to calculate what he eats. And has actually told us to divide our stomach into three. Each and every one of us. ثُلُثٌ لِطَعَامِهِ وَثُلُثٌ لِشَرَابِهِ وَثُلُثٌ لِنَفَسِهِ. 1/3 for food, and 1/3 for drink, and 1/3 for respiration. Today we are engaged in eating so much junk foods, which tastes good, but is void of fiber. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Rahman, Quran chapter 55, وَالْأَرْضَ وَدَاهَا لِلْأَنَامِ فِيهَا فَاكِهَةٌ وَالنَّخْلُ ذَاتُ الْأَكْمَامِ وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ وَالرَّيْحَانِ. That which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us out of Ar-Rahman, being merciful, are fruits and whole grains. وَالْحَبُّ ذُو الْعَصْفِ, that's a grain with husk. White fruits, they are compacted with polyphenols that are supposed to actually help the heart to beat good. And from that, al-habdul as we have fiber that are supposed to work to actually help the entire body, especially the heart, to beat numb. And because we've actually moved, we just eat it like everybody else. Even though the Prophet ﷺ was reported to have said, وَلِبَدَنِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقٌّ, your body has right over you. So don't just eat just like anybody else. You eat as a Muslim. You've left that behind. We eat just like anybody else. Junk food devoid of fiber. There is this disconnect between us and our families. Our children are now involved in night violence, which shouldn't be the case. One Muslim living in this area is supposed to change this area for the better. And if you are 5% and we can't make any difference, then if you have 5% as part of the entire bread that you see, and as 5% as the yeast, and you don't see any papa, there is something wrong with the yeast. And so it's time to actually step back and ask ourselves, what is our duty as Muslims living in London? Whether you were born here or you came, it's no coincidence. There is no such thing as coincidence in the grand plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Qamar, Bada A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim. How did he say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that everything that we see is well calculated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadar wa ma amruna illa wahidatun kalamhin bil basar. Each and everything that you see is well calculated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you being here is a problem solver. It's a peacemaker. And so you should be having a plan. From what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that Mr. Mayor, this is what we got. This is the Muslim or Islamic solution to night violence. But because we don't have it, and the Prophet ﷺ is telling us to eat right, and we don't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bada a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum washkuru lillahi in kuntum iyyahu ta'budun. Quran chapter 2 verse 172. If we take this ayah and step back and look at it, that we should eat right and be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we not. And so our foods are devoid of nutrition. Because of this social disconnect and the insecurity, because we don't have time for our children to actually give them an aim and let them believe that they can do it, they are now, surrounded, defined by peer pressure. And so instead of them actually going to school and tell them to be peaceful, to stop night violence, our children are now involved. And because of that insecurity, and because of that junk food that we're eating, it has come back to harm us. And so now we see the reason why 1 out of 4 is having high blood pressure. We just have to go back to our roots. We're not inventing anything new. We're going back to our roots. Take from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained to us, to take the heart as it is and have quality time for our children, and with that security and giving them the aim, there's going to be peace of mind. And guess what? You see how the heart will start to beat normally and have that high blood pressure coming back to normal. Choosing from Al-Quran and the Sunnah. And that is the definition of what we read from Surah Al-Kahf, that everything that we need, whether spiritual, medical, social, economical, psychological, pathophysiological, whatever, can be found in Al-Quran and the Sunnah. It's up to us to step back and ask ourselves as Muslims, what is our contribution? Or we can just, flow with the current. The choice is ours. We listen to our sheikhs and work with what they tell us, or we let it go and live like anybody else. But at the end of the day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us as Muslims, what have we done? You living in London, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you, how have you contributed positively for the development of London? Because that's what you're supposed to do as a Muslim. You decide where you want to find yourself. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكن من الخاسرين. الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله القائل الحمد لله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وله الحمد في الآخرة وهو الحكيم الخبير وصلى الله وسلم على رسول الله وعلى آله الأطهار وصحابته الأبرار. أما بعد, my respected elders, brothers and sisters, in closing, please let us try as best as we could as Muslims to help fight knife crime. It's our duty to eat right, to have quality time for our children, and borrow from that which the Prophet ﷺ has given us. If your doctor approves, you look in the water of Imam Malik, we have what is called flaxseed. You take that and borrow from the hadith of Salma. You have what is called Hawthorne from Surah Al-Waqi'ah, وَطَرِهِمْ مَنْدُوبٍ, part of what they will be given to people of Jannah. Talh is described as what? As banana. What is so unique about banana to have a record in Al-Quran? Because it's packed with magnesium. And if you ask any doctor that has nutritional background, will tell you that magnesium citrate is one mineral that can actually help set the heart back to its position, in order to reverse blood pressure. And of course, the Prophet ﷺ has actually asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect him from what? Laziness. And so that put exercise as part of our deen. This is how we put things in order, so that when we tell Muslims when we tell others that Islam has solution to everything, and this is our proof, that is called medical dawah, and they will be ready to listen. So let us redefine ourselves, inshallah, and take our position back and help solve problem. And with that peace, inshallah, everything will fall in place. In closing, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let our children be better than us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make London a better place. And may we contribute positively to London, UK, and the world in general. In closing, let us thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being Muslims. Wallah, it's out of sheer mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. رب اغفر وارحم وأنت أرحم الراحمين.
رب اغفر لنا ذنوبنا واسرافنا في امرنا وثبت اقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين قوموا الى صلاتكم يرحمكم الله.
أمنوا أن تيموا من لا يشاء الله وتحمى إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يقسمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى عليهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم